bear with me in this long-winded and fragrant metaphor, for you will find that almost all the virtues of the perfect wine glass have a parallel in topography. There is the long, thin stem that obviates fingerprints on the bowl. Why?
Game over.
Because no cloud must come between your eyes and the fiery heart of the liquid. Are not the margins on book pages similarly meant to obviate the necessity of fingering the type page? Again, the glass is colourless, or at the most only faintly tinged in the bowl, because the connoisseur judges wine partly by its colour and is impatient of anything that alters it. There are 1,000 mannerisms in topography that are as impudent and arbitrary as putting port in tumblers of red or green glass. When a goblet has a base that looks too small for security, it does not matter how cleverly it is weighted, you feel nervous lest it should tip over. There are ways of setting lines of type which may work well enough, and yet keep the reader subconsciously worried by the fear of doubling lines, reading 3 words as one, and so forth. Wine is so strange and potent a thing that it has been used in the central ritual of religion in one place and time, and attacked by a virago with a hatchet in another. There is only one thing in the world that is capable of stirring and altering men's minds to the same extent, and that is the coherent expression of thought. That is man's chief miracle, unique to man. There is no explanation whatever of the fact that I can make arbitrary sounds which will lead a total stranger to think my own thought. It is sheer magic that I should be able to hold a one-sided conversation by means of black marks on paper with an unknown person halfway across the world.
Game over.
Talking, broadcasting, writing, and printing are all quite literally forms of thought transference, and it is the ability and eagerness to transfer and receive the contents of the mind that is almost alone responsible for human civilization. If you agree with this, you will agree with my one main idea, i.e., that the most important thing about printing is that it conveys thought, ideas, images, from one mind to other minds. This statement is what you might call the front door of the science of topography. Within lie hundreds of rooms, but unless you start by assuming that printing is meant to convey specific and coherent ideas, it is very easy to find yourself in the wrong house altogether. Before asking what this statement leads to, let us see what it does not necessarily lead to. If books are printed in order to be read, we must distinguish readability from what the optician would call legibility. A page set in 14 pt bold sans is, according to the laboratory tests, more legible than one set in 11 pt Baskerville.
Game over.
A public speaker is more audible in that sense when he bellows, but a good speaking voice is one which is inaudible as a voice. It is the transparent goblet again. I need not warn you that if you begin listening to the inflections and speaking rhythms of a voice from a platform, you are falling asleep. When you listen to a song in a language you do not understand, part of your mind actually does fall asleep, leaving your quite separate aesthetic sensibilities to enjoy themselves unimpeded by your reasoning faculties. The fine arts do that, but that is not the purpose of printing. Type well used is invisible as type, just as the perfect talking voice is the unnoticed vehicle for the transmission of words, ideas. I once was talking to a man who designed a very pleasing advertising type, which undoubtedly all of you have used. I said something about what artists think about a certain problem, and he replied with a beautiful gesture, "Oh, madam, we artists do not think, we feel." That same day I quoted that remark to another designer of my acquaintance, and he, being less poetically inclined, murmured, "I'm not feeling very well today, I think." He was right, he did think. He was the thinking sort.
Game over.
And that is why he is not so good a painter, and to my mind 10 times better as a topographer and type designer than the man who instinctively avoided anything as coherent as a reason. I always suspect the typographic enthusiast who takes a printed page from a book and frames it to hang on the wall, for I believe that in order to gratify a sensory delight, he has mutilated something infinitely more important. Printing demands a humility of mind, for the lack of which many of the fine arts are even now floundering in self-conscious and maudlin experiments. There is nothing simple or dull in achieving the transparent page. Vulgar ostentation is twice as easy as discipline. When you realize that ugly topography never effaces itself, You will be able to capture beauty as the wise men capture happiness by aiming at something else. The stunt topographer learns the fickleness of rich men who hate to read. Not for them are long breaths held over serif and kern. They will not appreciate your splitting of hair spaces. Nobody save the other craftsmen will appreciate half your skill. But you may spend endless years of happy experiment in devising that crystalline goblet, which is worthy to hold the vintage of the human mind.